welcome you to another episode of Hold My Cutter here at Burned by Rocky Patel, just a few blocks away from PNC Park on the North Shore. We always talk about our featured smoke. This week it's the 1865 Project, the inaugural edition from Rocky, very full-bodied and very appropriate on this day. And our episode is brought to you by Berkshire Hathaway Home Services and Era Katz. She's our MVP in real estate and a top-producing realtor at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. If you're thinking about buying or selling, you need to call Era Katz. She's been knocking it out of the park for over a decade. She handles your home like she would handle her own. You're in good company. She's good people. So do me a favor and check out her website at askeracatz.com. Ask Era with an H at the end, KATZ.com. That's Era Katz with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. When it comes to real estate sales, remember to ask Era because she knows. And we know, Michael McHenry and I, that we have been excited to have our special guest on this episode. He is, without question, one of the all-time great broadcasters in sports history, an iconic figure in Pittsburgh, 33 years, voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates, a mentor of mine. It is Lanny Frattare. And Lanny, Michael and I have been talking about this for a while. We're thrilled that you could be with us, and we got a lot to get to. And first of all, thanks for the suggestion on this smoke. This is a real good one. You've become a cigar aficionado.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm smoking. This cost me 90 cents, by the way.
They don't sell these here at Burned by Rocky.
Yeah,
that's a
Lanny's
legendary
smoking.
discount of what that is.
These are Philly Blunt Strawberry.
Oh, delicious.
Philly Blunt Strawberry.
How
90
did, by the way,
cents.
this course, Hold My Cutter, it combines baseball talk, sports talk, Pittsburgh talk with cigars. How did you get into cigars?
Because,
Well, no, I don't. I'll tell you what.
Because
I've never told you.
And Blast got me going.
But I've never told you the story.
Oh, they did that to me too.
No, they got me going. That's right.
I never
Yeah.
told you the story that where there was one year we were doing some winter chat on our flagship radio station. I think we went out to Iron City, and I walked in, and you had a bunch of cigars, and you said, "Do you want one?" And I laughed. I thought you were joking, and you had taken it up.
No, really, not
Okay,
seriously.
all right.
I started because, remember, we had that little porch outside the press box when we
Three
first
Rivers.
opened the PNC Park.
Oh, at PNC Park, yeah.
Right, and you guys had lounge chairs. You had little, those foldable chairs.
Yeah.
And a little table out there, and I'd go by the window and I'd see you guys out there, and I said, that looks like fun.
Yeah.
So I started.
That's
with
how
you
you
guys.
started.
Then they told us we couldn't smoke inside the ballpark anymore. Right?
That's right.
So, but we did find some of the places. Milwaukee let us smoke
That's right.
inside the ballpark.
We found different places, and sometimes, we ended up having to smoke outside every ballpark.
Yeah. And then what I did is, because some of you guys said, well, I don't want to smoke if I can't smoke inside the ballpark, I went outside the press room every night.
I remember that.
And I would sit out there, and what I really loved about it was I would be sitting there and looking at notes and all that stuff, and people would walk by, and they would walk, and then they'd stop and they'd look. And I would yell at them. I said, "Come on over, man."
Don't be intimidated.
They spotted me, but they felt like they couldn't bother me because I was sitting there, And I said, "Come on." And then I would say to them, hey, tell me a story. And he said, "Well, I got a mother that's a big pirate. What's her name? I'll mention her on the air tonight." And I had more fun those last several years outside, smoking cigars and just meeting fans that were going by, and they would give me notes about the game, and it was.
I love that.
It was
Absolutely love that.
truly wonderful.
Oh,
Can you believe it's been has it been almost 15 years or so?
16 years. Yeah, I left the end of 2008. I was asked to leave it.
Does it feel like that?
Huh?
What do you mean you were asked to leave?
No, I was asked to leave. I mean, I feel bad. I lied initially. I mean, when Frank Coonley called me and he said, we have two press releases. One says that you're retiring. One is the other one. And stupid me, listen to how dumb I am, Michael, okay? Okay? There's two press releases, right? And one is the one I'm retiring, and one is I don't know what it is, and I wasn't smart enough to read.
Doors.
I didn't read both of them. So to this day, I don't know what the other one said.
Which one? You read the one that said I'm retiring?
Yeah, I read that one. And then I had people call me, and I told the media that I felt it was time to retire and blah, blah, blah. And then years later, matter of fact, the spring of 2009, Joe Starkey called me and said, I want to come to Waynesburg because I want to do a story on the former Pirate broadcaster. What is he doing on opening day? And that's when I told the story about, the true story about being asked to leave, and also told the story about my alcoholism. And how, though I never drank on the air, and you know this because we spent a lot of time together. I mean, I was drinking more than I should have, and so consequently there were days in my life where, again, I didn't drink on the air. I never drove a car while I had been drinking. I was a house drinker, right? And I was a hotel drinker, and so, you know, and I got to a point where if I got back to the hotel and the bar was closed, I would get annoyed. So then I said, well, I'll just take booze with me on the road in my suitcase. And obviously, I made a lot of bad decisions, career-affecting decisions. I got hard to work with. I was hard to work with at times. And, you know, if I had found sobriety sooner, you know, maybe I would still be a pirate broadcaster.
Do you wish you were? Or when you think about your career path, because I think about this a lot, of course, Lanny, we would make decisions we believe are bad, but the life takes you different places. And what you've done at Waynesburg, and how many kids who become adults who are now in the broadcasting business, that would never have happened.
Well,
right?
You're right about that. Finding Waynesburg and having the opportunity to mentor the next generation of broadcasters has been a true treat for me. And the other thing is, you know, I worked for Don Rebel in the Trib Live High School Sports Network doing high school football, basketball, baseball. I've been doing Pony League World Series. The last 5 years I've been doing West Virginia baseball. And it's funny, too, because I've had people say to me, do you think you should be in the Hall of Fame as a Ford Frick recipient? And I said, you know what? If I deserve to be in, I deserve more to be in now because of the time I have spent announcing baseball, high school baseball, pony baseball, and West Virginia for very little money. But the great thing was, is that I was overpaid as a pirate broadcaster. So when I stepped away, I had done a pretty good job of despite 2 divorces, I had done a pretty good job. I'd done a pretty good job of saving enough money so that when Don Rebel said, I can only pay you $50 a game, I said, I'm in. We're done, you know. So
that's true passion.
What's that?
That means you love it. That's true passion.
I do West Virginia for $250 a game, and you know, I mean, back when I was a pirate broadcaster, I was probably making $250 an inning, you know. So,
But you still love it. You still love it, right?
You can tell. He's moving and shaking. I love it.
So, Michael, I don't know if I've told you. First of all, I've said to him, he's too kind, humble. I would not be here if not for Lanny Frattare. Wow. He's never told, but I know the story just because I know him.
And I wouldn't be on this show if it weren't for you.
There you go.
Well, so even.
Full circle, boys. Yeah, full circle.
And I wouldn't have had a chance to announce the names at the 79 celebration if it hadn't been. That was a classy thing you did. To ask me to be a part of that.
But anyway, but Lanny, so I ran into someone recently, and it's actually fun to talk to people around my generation to say they became pirate fans not by Bob Prince, and it's no disrespect, but Bob Prince I didn't connect with Bob Prince when it came to the Pittsburgh Pirates. I grew up in central Pennsylvania. I became a Pirates fanatic because of Lanny Frattare and Milo Hamilton. Those were my guys. And I met someone recently who said the same thing. Exactly. And you think about the generations, plural, who grew up listening and becoming Pirate fans because of Lanny Frattare and his classic voice and his classic calls. And it's really neat to watch him continue to grow, which is phenomenal, and how enthusiastic he is. Cool. He's the most prepared human being I've ever met. He always said, and when it came to broadcasting, you got to be prepared. And to this day, he's the most prepared broadcaster.
I tell my students, I said, and I told a group of them this past spring, I said, you know, of all the things I can teach you, the most important thing that I want you to take away from me is the need for preparation. And I believe that 85% of the success of a broadcast is determined by preparation. And unfortunately, I hear too many guys on the air that aren't prepared.
Will you go a little bit deeper in that? Because I absolutely love it. I believe that with my playing career. I think it's not talked about enough. I think a lot of people think they're doing enough. I never felt like I was doing enough. I think the best, maybe the best in the world, always think that they're never doing enough, and you just keep growing.
Well, when I started, at one point I watched Greg with a computer, okay, and the laptop and all that, and I fought that for a long time, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. Part of it was I didn't know how to run it, okay.
Right.
But I've learned that what is really wonderful is the ability to go on the computer and look for things and then find other things. I do in a West Virginia game, and by the way, when I do West Virginia baseball, the ESPN Plus idea is that West Virginia hires the announcers, but there's more people from the other team that are watching the games than the West Virginia fans. And so I wanted to make sure that I was doing a good job covering the other team, talking to the head coaches, tell me about your wife, tell me about your kids, tell me about your parents, was your dad a coach? And I had this one kid, and I went through all the bios. Okay? When you work sports, sports information provides you with all the bios on the player. And I'm a big Beatles fan, right? And I saw this story that said this kid, college kid, is a big Beatles fan.
Oh,
right?
boy.
Right? So I went to him and I said, you got to give me your top 5 Beatles songs, okay? And I told my partner, I said, I have this. I told the director and the producer, and I gave it to the producer to make a graphic out of it. I said, but here's the deal. I want to save this until we get to a point where maybe the game, it's lopsided, and then I'm going to use it. I don't want to use it until I feel the need for something, right? The other thing is, we had a West Virginia TCU game, and I typed in TCU and famous graduates from TCU, right? John Denver.
Oh.
Right?
Right up your alley again.
And he said, wait a minute, John Denver, TCU, West Virginia, almost heaven, country roads, right? Okay. So then I said to myself, I wonder if Take Me Home, Country Roads was ever a #1 hit. And no, the highest it ever got was #2. So then the next logical question is, what was #1?
It was a Beatles song.
How do you mend a broken heart by the Bee Gees?
No.
You see, that's the kind of stuff.
I agree with you.
That's the kind of stuff I love.
That's the fun.
Okay? You can take your launch angles and your home run distances and your velocity off the bat. And matter of fact, I work with a guy in West Virginia who is into all that launch angle stuff. And every time he brings it up, I yawn. Every time he mentions it, and he does it just to annoy me, right? So I yawn.
Yeah.
I said, talk to somebody who cares.
You mean a line drive, a pop up, and a ground ball, right?
Talk to somebody who cares.
Well, it's so funny because we have to, walk that fine line, that fence, because enough people.
Well, but here's the thing, is that you have to understand that when you're an announcer, there has to be a priority list created in your mind as to, because if you, and I teach my students, there's a priority list. Yeah. For a play-by-play announcer, call the play, score time and period, recap storyline nuggets about the players. And if you're doing things that are at the bottom of the list, that means that you're taking away from something at the top of the list.
Well said.
I'm saying that if I'm worried about launch angle and all that other stuff, then I'm taking away from what is my strength, and that is telling stories and relating information. And I believe, on Mother's Day, I want to go to the players and say, tell me about your mother, okay? Father's Day, I didn't have Father's Day, but Mother's Day, we had a game, tell me about your mother. Tell me, that's what I want to do.
I love that.
But how nice is it, Lanny, that honestly, that you have the freedom to do that? Isn't that liberating that you can do that nowadays?
Well, I went to the West Virginia people that hired me, and I said, you're telling me that you want me to be basically neutral. And so periodically I would say to them, I'm getting excited when the other team hits a home run. Are you okay with that? Because you're hiring me, right? I don't want you to say, Lanny, we're not hiring you because you're not rooting for West Virginia. I do want West Virginia to win. Yeah. I've gotten to know J.J. Weatherhold and Ben Lumsden and all those guys, and Randy Mazey, and I know about how Randy saved the program, and he's a great guy and a wonderful guy to he tells you great stories, and so.
Talk about what it was like to come in 1976, right? Because we've talked about Bob Prince.
That was his first year?
Yeah,
That was your first year?
but replacing, legends. We talk about people. How do you follow Vin Scully? How do you follow Ernie Harwell? How do you follow these greats? How did Lanny Frattare from Rochester, New York?
Well, first of all, I was glad that the Pirates, there was a lot of talk in Pittsburgh before I got hired that the guy that is number 2 ought to be a Pittsburgher. How can anybody that's not a Pittsburgher be a Pirate broadcaster? Okay? And the same question's coming up now with Bill Hillgrove. Okay? All these guys, and I understand, I don't begrudge them. All these guys believe that because they're Pittsburghers now, they should move that guy. But here's the thing. What amazed me was that, first of all, Bob Prince was tremendous to me. I was one of the guys that replaced Bob Prince, and yet he gave me tremendous advice all the time. He told me that you had to be more than just a voice on the air. You had to go out and you had to meet people, you had to connect with people. He told me how to give the score enough, right? He told me every batter, every 3-2 pitch, every change of score, end of inning, right? He gave me all those rules, right? But the funny thing about it was that when my first couple of years with Milo, and remember, we're only televising 25 games.
Wow.
So that means that I'm only.
And how did you guys split? So Milo Hamilton was you and he came in together.
Yeah, and I was supposed to be his color analyst.
Oh, okay.
Right, and you did some color analyst as a non-athlete, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So Milo, my first year, he only gave me 3 and 6. I only did 3rd inning and 7th inning.
That's still
Right?
boggles my mind.
time I see Bob Prince,
he only gave you 2 innings.
yeah, and every time I'd see Bob Prince, he'd say, "Hey, there's Mr. Number 3 and 7. There's number 3 and 7, right?"
Is that because you're the rookie? Is there a little bit of hazing right there? Or how's
Well,
that work?
I mean, that was what he gave me, and he was in charge, and I had to. But the other thing was that Milo would call a play, and then he would talk about the play, and he'd say everything that had to be said, and then he'd point to me, like, "Now it's your turn to talk." And I'm sitting there thinking, as a young rookie broadcaster, you just said it all, Milo. What else am I supposed to say, right? So
How long did that go on?
But the good thing was, Joe Brown told me, he said, "Lanny, first of all, we hired you because you proved to us you want to learn. You're a young broadcaster who wants to learn," and that's true. And then he said to me, "Make sure you talk to players, coaches, managers. Make sure you talk to people so that you know a little bit about what it is that you're going to fill in as Milo's analyst." And then there was that, when we did television, I was all by myself on radio for 3 and first 3, last 3, and then I'd go over to television for 3 innings, and Milo would go to radio, and so it was pretty challenging then, but not terribly bad, because in the minor leagues I was by myself too, and I was smart enough to know when I'm working alone, I can't be the play-by-play guy and the analyst. I can only be the play-by-play guy. And I was smart enough to realize.
Well, did you have color analyst on TV when you went to TV?
In '79, they brought Nellie Briles in to do a couple games. And then in 1980, when Dave Martin was here, what a tragic year that was.
Yeah.
Nellie did as a 3rd man. But through much of it, no, there was not a color analyst. Hey, by the way, speaking about my early years, Milo and Lanny, our biggest critics were? The one guy that was the biggest critic of us, John Cigna. This is a guy that's doing talk radio
on the flagship station.
On the flagship station,
He's a
from
sports-
9
or-
to midnight. 9 to midnight. And I'd get in my car and I'd turn him on, and he'd be ripping us. And I said to management one day, again, I'm a rookie announcer, right? I said, we're all part of the same family. You're the people that hired us. And they said, well, that's John. And John had this thing where if the Pirates had a night with low attendance, he would get into this thing, "Oh, let's talk about what's wrong with Pirate attendance," okay? And he had these 5 things he went to, right? The roads in Pittsburgh, the parking, too many black players, and the announcers. I mean,
And the announcers.
And the announcers. It was our fault that nobody was coming to the ball field.
It's funny because Tim Neverett, who did some Pirate games, went to Boston, and the same thing happened. His first year, he said he would listen to the morning show, and they would just be ripping him every day on the flagship station. It makes no sense.
For what?
Well, again,
Whatever they
for
could.
kicks, just for kicks.
Yeah.
What I know now is that as it relates to Pittsburgh, is that when you're a new broadcaster, okay, and they've heard Bob Prince, and they heard how Bob did a game, or Jim Woods, how Jim Wood did a game, and now they hear you do the game, they're going to be critical. You're not doing it like Bob did it. You're not doing it like Jim Woods did it, okay?
Yeah, because you don't have the same size shoes. They always say, you don't know what it's like to walk in my shoes. Exactly. I don't have the same size.
But the problem, Mike, is that when you're a young broadcaster like I am, and you're trying to learn, okay, you're not trying to sort out the constructive criticism,
right.
And even from people that say to you, I want to give you constructive criticism, and you find out in the final analysis, they really don't mean it to be constructive. They're trying to they're trying to poke you and affect the way you live your life. And I mean, there are a lot of nights. My first couple years, I'd go home and almost cry to my wife because it's like.
Well, how many years with you and Milo?
4 years.
So 4 years.
4 years.
And then Milo moved on.
Yeah, Milo went to Chicago.
And they hired, I think, this guy from like ABC Sports, Dave Martin.
Yeah, they hired Dave Martin. The problem with the hiring of Dave Martin was they wanted Dave Van Horn, Fred White, or Marty Brenneman. Those were the three announcers they wanted. And all three of them, when they talked to him, used the Pirates' interest to negotiate better deals for themselves in their current cities. And then they got down to a point like in January, February, they didn't have anybody, and they hired Dave. And Dave was not ready to, and then and they told Dave and me, you guys, there's no voice of the team. You're like 1 and 1A, okay? So.
How'd that go?
Well, I knew I was in trouble. I went to St. Louis with Dave and the team one time, and I had dinner with Dave and his daughter looked over at me and said, "Oh, so you're my dad's assistant, huh?"
Oh,
I knew I was in trouble.
Well,
I knew there was going to be trouble.
God rest his soul. Dave Martin, I'm sure, was a nice man, but listening to those games was a struggle. So much so, I'll never forget. And our buddy Tim DeBacco, I think, has the tape, the audio tape, radio one day. We're listening one afternoon game. I think it might have been Montreal, but Lanny, I'll never forget. There's a pop-up.
No, know what it was?
Help me out, Lanny.
No, you know what it was? No, I wasn't with him. Nellie Brown was with him.
Oh, help me out, Nellie, then.
Have you ever, Montreal had that open stadium, right?
Okay, yeah.
And it was a day game, and the sun was coming down, and it was really tough to see the ball, okay? Anyways, guy was running from first to second. The batted ball hit the runner. Dave called a double play.
Oh.
Ground ball to second, throw to short for one on the first. The ball hit the runner. And he's calling a double play. And then, Nellie's going like this, and that's when he said, "Help me out,
Nellie." Help me out, Nellie.
Yeah. Good.
So then from there, Dave Martin's gone, then what?
Jim Rooker comes in, and Jim and I had many wonderful times together.
I love Rook.
Yeah, Jim and I had a lot of wonderful times together.
Was that radio and TV?
No, it was, well, initially it was, but again, we're not doing much television. Then later it got to be, when they sold to the Public-Private Coalition, Mac Pride had lunch with me in the Allegheny Club, and he said, "I want 3 announcing teams. I want you and Rook to do radio. I want John Sanders and Steve Blass to do KDKA, and I want Mike Lang and Steve Blass to do the cable." And I said to him, "I think you're barking up a bad tree." And he's, "Why?" And I said, "Because you're going to create competition between the announcers." You know what Vince Scully told me? Vince Scully told me once that when they moved to Los Angeles, initially the people in LA said, "We're going to hire Scully and we're going to hire an LA announcer." And Scully said, "Don't do that. You're going to create competition between the Brooklyn guy and the LA guy." And he convinced them to keep Jerry Doggett as his partner, so he wouldn't have that competition.
And then, so that went on for a while. Well, they didn't. They had then 3 separate teams. They did that for a couple of years.
For a year.
And eventually.
So they figured it out, ultimately.
But eventually, it was you, Rooker, Blass,
and
right?
John Sanders.
But then John moved on.
And then Bob Walk joined us after Rook left. It was
Kent Dirtavanis was there for a few years.
Was here, but then Kurt left, and then you joined us. So it was, it was you, me, you and I, and Steve,
Blass and Walk.
And Bob.
Who was your Favorite color analyst?
Uh-oh.
Bob Walker.
Why?
I think Bob Walker is one of the great color analysts of all of baseball. I never understood when we worked for Fox why Fox National didn't hire Bob Walker.
I could not agree more. Obviously, different generation, but been around the bend a little bit. We have the best. I think Rock and Walker are amazing, but yeah, Walk has a special gift. He really does.
What makes Bob so good to you, in your mind, as being the best?
Well, first of all, Bob does something that that is against the way I live life, but Bob doesn't do a lot of prep.
Now,
okay.
he would argue with you because sometimes he will bring a pen into the booth.
That's right. Yeah, he would. Yeah, and
but
one of my favorite things would be he would not make it. I mean, if you're a baseball announcer, you got to have a scorecard, right?
Yeah.
Not Bob. No. Bob just takes the printed scorecard. I don't know if he still does that.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then when the game got bad, he'd just rip it up.
Yep.
Okay. Those of us who made out our scorecards, heaven for we are never going to give up. I mean, they're works of art. Okay. We spent hours on these scorecards.
It's incredible.
We're not giving them up. Okay. And Blast would keep them for a series, and then like if somebody did something really great. And understand too that the great thing about when we had Bob and Steve is that they both like to do different things. Okay, Bob would analyze. Steve didn't like to do that. Okay, if you said to Bob, "What's this guy's lifetime record of against the Pirates?" Bob wouldn't read a note sheet. Okay, he didn't read. Okay, but I knew Steve at some point was going to give you the lifetime record of this pitcher against the Pirates. I knew he was going to do that. I knew it was on his scorecard. And I would wait, and when he did, then I would jump in with an ancillary note. Okay, Steve does this, I follow suit, okay? And the other thing, too, is that Greg knows is that I once created a 4x6 card file system, okay? I watched Scully one day work the network, and the guy was handing him notes. And I said, wow, that's great. So I had this purple box with all these 4x6 cards in it, right? Okay? And they were divvied up by odd occurrences, low-hit games, grand slams. I mean, okay, right? And every now and then, Walkie would bring up a question and say, I wonder about that game back in... and he would do it just to see me go to my box, just to see me go to my...
He'd love to see him rifle through his cards.
See me go. And then I'd look over and he'd go, ha-ha, gotcha. Yeah.
But that's Lanny's preparation. That was the computer back then. Before computers, Lanny had it all researched on his own over the winter, and he had this file system. He's so organized. Absolutely remarkable.
But
Lanny Frattare.
Going back to Bob, because you guys have both worked with Bob. Yeah, he's got an eye for it. And I feel like Rock has the eye for it and really good timing. They're just watching the game. I think that's what makes them so good. They're not trying to overdo it. They're not trying to overanalyze it. They watch the game and say, what is happening? And if you're a fan at home, what are you doing? You're watching the game and wondering what happened.
Mike, the other thing is that I was fortunate that Steve and Bob both understood, particularly when I was on radio, okay? They understood that there were always those magical moments. And if they didn't, Bob at times would say when he works radio, he's got a day off, okay?
Yeah.
Because they understood that 80% of the radio broadcast has to be me, all right? And if the color guy doesn't give me room, okay? So when I call a great call, then I'm fortunate that I don't have a partner screaming in the background, okay? If you listen to, sometimes Google Pete Rose's record-breaking hit of the Ty Cobb record, and if you listen to it, you cannot understand what Marty Brenneman is saying because Joe Nuxall is screaming in the background. And that's a shame because Tony Romo did that to Jim Nantz in the Super Bowl. When Nantz called the winning touchdown for Kansas City, Tony Romo jumped in too quickly and ruined the whole thing.
Wow. It's incredible, the philosophy of play-by-play.
Yeah, I mean, when I did radio, I loved radio when I got to do it. And it's because Bob and Rock both told me, like, it's not your time. And you see that immediately. You let the crowd come in. But, like, the dynamic there is so cool because I get to see you guys in your element.
Well, but the two problems with former athletes being in the radio booth, I maintain that a lot of former athletes have not listened to good radio play-by-play, okay? They have been schooled and they start believing that they can do the radio color analyst like they do television, and you can't, okay? And the other problem is that you know, like with Hillgrove doing football, there are times when Craig Wolfley and Pat Bostic are yelling and cheering and jumping in, and poor Bill, he's got to set the offense. He's got to give you down and distance. He's got to give you the score, time, and period. You know, play ends, he's got to give you down and distance. And the color guy doing radio has to understand that that's, you know, Bill is driving the bus, and you got to wait and see where your opportunity.
That's another reason why Bob is so good, because as you know, Bob, when we have our computers out for the live reads and so on, he knows there's so much business to get through for the first couple of innings. On radio, he doesn't say a word the first couple of innings. He's just letting you go ahead, let it breathe, and I'll get to it when I get to it. But he just knows there's so much business, I'm just going to back off and let you.
Well, and I maintain that there are things that if you know, when I worked radio, okay, I moved the monitor. I didn't want to see the monitor, okay, because I didn't want the monitor to dictate my timing. Okay, I knew instinctively what I want to do when I want to do it. Okay. By the way, one of the problems is that when you use TV audio, okay, I'd be doing a radio game, and all of a sudden I'd hear the catcher's glove being pounded by the baseball because now they've got TV audio and TV showing the bullpen, right?
You hear the pop of the mitt, and if you're listening,
and you're doing a radio broadcast, and you know, you don't think going to the bullpen now is all that big a deal. So okay, right? Or they show you something in the dugout, and they give you audio in the dugout, and I'm on radio. I'm not dealing with, you know, I got other things to worry about.
On radio, all of a sudden you hear the donut come off the bat onto the on-deck circle. You hear clink, 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 you're on radio, and you just hear this crazy noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're with the great Lanny Frattare on Hold My Cutter, and brought to you by Berkshire Hathaway Home Services and Era Katz. Era's battle cry is exceptional service, bulldog at negotiating, and relentless in your pursuit of happiness. If you're buying or selling real estate, you need to call Era Katz. She's strategic, smart, and aggressive in her approach. She's no joke. And when it comes to that bulldog claim, she goes after it. You're the fort, Brownie, she's the bulldog.
Ooh.
She's in it for you. Check out her online reviews. Era, like Sarah, without the S, Katz. Well, she's got a tough name. She said growing up, but she was not joking. Home inventory is home inventory is scarce. Interest rates are high. Multiple offers. It's enough to make your head spin. Now more than ever, you need a knowledgeable real estate agent. You need a closer. You don't want to win the game, but you want to finish it with the least amount of stress on you and your family. Call Eric Katz, Realtor at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services at 814-758-8623 for guidance. Lanny, how about your favorite, we talked about favorite color analyst, how about, this is a softball, I think, favorite manager you worked with?
That seems like a softball.
There's nobody better than Jim Leland. And you know I'm prejudiced because...
he's a rare breed. You're not prejudiced.
But here's the thing, Michael. The first 2 years Leland was here, I didn't think he liked me. Okay? And
Why is that, by the way? What made you think that?
I would, he'd be in the dugout by himself, and I'd walk towards him, and I'd get within 5 feet, and he'd get up and walk away. Okay? So one day in Chicago at Wrigley Field, I got in a cab early, and I went down, and I said that, and I met with Jimmy to find out if he didn't like me or not. Okay? Right? Well, I learned later that basically Jimmy was testing me. It was all part of his.
I love it.
It was all part of his master plan.
I love it.
So, anyways, so that same trip we go to New York, we're coming back from Shea Stadium. What a dump! Shea, you ever been to Shea Stadium?
No.
Oh, what a dump!
Dump with a capital D.
Yeah, dump. And we're coming up to the hotel, and I'm in the third row, and I hear Jimmy yell, "Lanny!" I go, "Yes, Skip." He goes, "I want you to come to my room tonight." So I go to Greg Johnson, the traveling secretary, and I say, "Where's Jimmy's room?" And I go up there, and he's in there with his coaches, and they're talking about players.
In a suite.
And I said to Jimmy, I said, "I shouldn't be here." He goes, "I trust you."
Oh, that's amazing.
And I got some of the most remarkable information from Jimmy. And sometimes he would tell me something, and then the next day I would say, what of that can I use or not? And then sometimes he'd say, well, you can say this, but don't say I said so. You can say it, but it's true, okay? Like this player is blah, blah, blah. So one day, then I got really cocky about it, right? Okay? And one day, Jimmy had a team meeting. And I walked into his office and I said, "Skip, what was the team meeting about?" He said, "Lanny, if I wanted you to know, I would have invited you."
That's the way it should be, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just straightforward.
Yeah,
Right to it.
none of your business, you know.
But imagine that. There's a manager of a Major League Baseball team having the trust to tell him, knowing full well, Lanny's not going to go on the air and say something he shouldn't.
Right.
I mean, it's just fantastic. And then, of course, this friendship has lasted a lifetime. Essentially, you're Patrick's godfather.
I am Patrick's godfather.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I am.
That's amazing.
You golf.
Jimmy
with-
said at the time, when he asked me, he said, I asked 12 other people. They said, no, would you do this? Okay. There's a lot of great Jimmy Leyland stories.
Yeah.
Well, and also, how good he was to you, Lanny, when you were going through some really tough times.
Yeah, when I got divorced the first time, and I told Jimmy, he said, where are you going to live? And I said, I'm going to get an apartment. He said, no, you're not. You're going to come and live in a... Jimmy had an apartment above his garage. Jim and Katie had an apartment above their garage. So
That's good people
So
right there.
I lived up
That's
there.
amazing.
It was perfect. It had a little sitting room, a little kitchenette.
Well, 'cause that had to be a
shower.
hard time of
That's
your
all I
life.
needed.
Yeah,
right?
that's
all I
amazing.
needed. So, and then they'd call me at 5 o'clock and say, come on down to dinner. And so for 6 months, when I was trying to deal with that challenge of my life, they were right there. And I said, well, how much do you want me to pay you per month for the apartment? He said, you only have to take the garbage out on Monday. That's your job.
And that
Monday
was
morning,
it.
you have to take the garbage
That's
out.
awesome.
And that was it.
That was it.
Did you ever have to concern yourself with being objective when it came to his decisions?
No, I made up my mind that if anybody asked me about that, I would. Matter of fact, I'll tell you a story. I was the same way with Gene Lamont. Okay, Gene Lamont and I became good buddies as well, and that was a spin-off of the Leyland thing. Okay, so one night after the game, management tells me I've got to go on a talk show. Okay, and I know you were on with the guys yesterday and blah blah. Okay, that's all. And I never liked doing it because it's an opinion-based thing,
Right.
and we're play-by-play announcers, okay? And so our lives are not necessarily opinion. We want to be known as good announcers that can call the game, okay? I'm not worried about whether people think I have the right opinions about things, okay? But so I'm on with a guy, John Corby. Remember John Corby?
yeah, absolutely.
I'm on with John Corby. And he gets on Lamont about a decision Lamont made. And I said to him, John, I'm going to be honest with you and your audience. I'm a big fan of Gene Lamont. I believe that if Gene Lamont made that decision, he felt it was the right one. There's your answer. He came back and asked me the question again. I said, John, I just told you, I'm a big fan of Gene Lamont. I think he's a great manager, blah, blah, blah. He asked me a third time, and I hung up on him.
Good
Well,
for
that was
you.
the end of that.
Yeah,
Good for
but
you,
guess
that's
who got
right.
in trouble?
You did. Of course you did.
You got in trouble for doing
Management
it?
called me the next day. What are you doing hanging up on him?
Well, what do they want you to do? Who knows?
Well,
That's always the question.
Yeah, that's another episode of Hold My Cutter. How about the other managers then? After Leyland, after Lamont?
Well,
you were obviously you weren't necessarily as close.
And you were here for some of that.
Yeah.
You see, my problem was that I got spoiled, and so now when the new guys came in,
It had to be tough. It had to be really tough.
And as a matter of fact, I know now that when new management took over, Dave Littlefield and his crew came in, okay? I know that Littlefield knew about my relationship before and said, this is not going to happen with Lanny. This is not going to happen with Lanny. And the manager, same thing. It was not going to happen. One of my favorite Littlefield stories is, we're in Houston, right?
Where to what?
We're in Houston, right? And one of the visiting Astro announcers comes over and says to me, he said, I hear a rumor that Kip Wells is taking Viagra because he's having trouble with his fingertips.
Oh.
Okay?
Yeah,
and
he
it
had numbness-
stimulates your extremities,
Yeah,
right?
he had numbness in his fingertips.
Yeah, that's right. So he said to me,
Is that real?
That's a true story.
he said he
Wow.
was taking Viagra.
Blue pill for your fingertips.
Right. So listen to this. So I said, well, I don't know. So I'll go downstairs. So I go downstairs, and sure enough, Kip Wells is out in center field. So I wait for about 10 minutes, and I can't talk to him. I have to go back upstairs. So I go to Brad Henderson, who was the trainer at the time, and I said, what can you tell me
Yeah, I like
about? What can you tell me about this? He goes, oh my God, you should know this.
Huh.
You should not know this. He said, you can't use this on the air. I mean, the Astro announcers are telling me about it, right? So I said, you can't use this. I said, okay, Brad, I won't use it. I go upstairs. PR director comes to me and says, Dave Littlefield just called me and told me to tell you, you are not to use. Wait a minute. I said, I already told Brad, okay? Right? So this is the best part of it. I'm on television that night, right? You know how the ads are behind home plate? Guess what the first inning ad was?
No, it couldn't be.
Yep.
Just
Did you make any reference?
I made some snide crack.
Yeah, you did.
I made some snide crack.
Of course you did.
And got in trouble for it.
But to you guys, that's tough for me because if you're on the same team, you have the opposing team that has this information, they have no regard to not say it. They're going to bring it out, right? Why can't you
and think about this.
beat it to the punch?
What if I had talked to Kip Wells, and what if he had told me about it,
Exactly.
Yeah.
and I didn't run it by Brad Henderson, and he didn't run it by Dave
Right,
Littlefield?
and it's
I would
Kip.
have used it on the air, right?
Right, of course.
Kip Wells tells me, right?
Of course.
So my argument always is that it doesn't serve us well as team announcers if you don't. I mean, we're accepting of the fact if you come to us and say, this is what Jimmy did. Jimmy say, look, Lanny, here's the deal. I don't want you to use it. Okay? Then we won't use it.
Right.
But if we find out something on our own, we got to run everything by you. You know, we found out, this story about the player. We got to run everything by you.
Well, that's why that relationship is so important.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. And then the trust.
Absolutely.
The trust. Lanny, I got a trivia question for you, Michael McKenry. Do you recall the late Bobby Knight coaching Indiana? Right?
Yeah.
Do you remember
Who doesn't know Bobby Knight?
Do you remember the chair game where he threw the chair across the floor?
Yeah. Yeah. Good distance.
Go on YouTube.
Yep.
You know who announced that game that night?
I'm guessing he's sitting right here.
Lanny Frattare.
Come on. So you dealt with Bobby Knight consistently.
And every anniversary of the chair game, I get all these phone calls from people.
I bet you do.
Yeah. But the amazing thing is everybody says, what'd you say? I announced he threw a chair.
Yeah, right.
What am I supposed to say, right?
You didn't have an opinion?
So, hey, what was the launch angle on that chair?
Yeah, there you go. What was the exit velo on his throw?
Yeah.
Well, but the best line of all was, the game was in Bloomington, Purdue, Indiana, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Bobby Knight came out with this golf sweater on. And I said, Coach Knight looks like he's going to play golf today. He threw the chair, and my partner, Bill Hoskett, said, I think his tee time is earlier than we thought it was going to be.
How were you doing those games, by the way? How'd that come about?
Jack Strum.
Oh.
Good friend of ours.
He was at Ohio State.
I guess more. I haven't talked to Jack in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hoskett and I did Ohio State basketball for 5 years, and then the company that Jack was working with took over Big Ten basketball, and Bill and I were the lead announcers, and then the second year, we go to Ann Arbor for a game, and the Big Ten sports information guy comes to us and says, "You're not doing the game tonight." And I said, "Why?" Because they haven't paid us a check in a month. We're not letting you do a game. We flew all the way to Ann Arbor to do the game and prepared to do the game, and we weren't allowed to do it because they said, your company didn't pay the check. You're not doing the game.
Did you eventually do games again?
No, that was it.
That was
the end of it.
Really,
That was the end of it.
Literally pulled the plug.
That was it. Yeah.
Lanny, what's your favorite all-time broadcast moment? And is it the same as your all-time, what you believe to be your best call?
My favorite moment is the 1990 clincher when Doug Drabeck beat Joe McGrain. Final out was the ground ball to Jose Lean, out at first base. And the reason it meant so much to me is because I had developed this relationship with Jimmy. I'd seen Jimmy take, that first year when Leland was managing, the Pirates were 1-17 against the Mets. And Leland said, the Mets can't be that good because we beat them once. Right? So to see Jimmy celebrate, and to see the rewards of all his hard work. And I purposely, by the way, that night I stayed in the press box for like an hour and a half because I didn't belong in the clubhouse. It wasn't my celebration, it was their celebration.
Hey, that's amazing.
That's
yeah,
cool.
I said I'm not going to the clubhouse until I don't want to miss the bus.
That's great.
And then when we got back to Pittsburgh, we all went to the Clark Bar afterwards to celebrate. So.
That was in St. Louis, obviously.
So that was
how do you think you did with the call?
Well,
He
walking.
nailed
That was
it.
the first. That was
He
the
nailed
first.
it.
That was the National League
Yeah,
East time,
and I
1990.
don't remember what I said, and I don't necessarily think it was all that monumental or all that, but Walkie used to kid me too because he pitched the game before that was the game that clinched the tie for the division title. Walkie says, you're always talking about the Drabeck game. What about
my game?
I told him, I said, Doug Drabeck, my all-time favorite pitcher.
And why is that?
Well, number one, because he worked quickly. Number two, he's a winner. And number three, had a hot wife. That's why. Christy.
So Bob gets two.
Christy Drabeck.
Bob has 2 or 3 of those. He's got the hot wife. He was
Does not work quickly.
does not work quickly, but he was a winner.
He was a winner, yeah.
He was a winner.
But he did not work quickly.
No.
And Walkie even said to me a couple times, watching the Jumbotron, he said, you know, I really was a slow pitcher, wasn't I?
He admitted it later.
Have you ever told Michael the Montreal story about Walkie?
I think Bob actually was here and told the story
He
about
did.
the chickens.
About the chicken.
Yeah, outstanding.
He wanted to see how
Leland
many
goes out and said, what are you doing?
how
I'm
many
trying to tell
chickens
you
they could
chickens
put on the
I ate."
scoreboard.
Yeah,
Every
it's
time
amazing.
he threw to first base, they'd put another chicken on the
Yeah,
scoreboard. He
can't
wanted to
do
see.
that anymore. Nope.
They got to run out eventually.
Yeah.
How about in your mind, your best call? Or do you have one?
Yeah, well, you and I agree about this. I mean, what a baseball announcer, and I think any play-by-play announcer wants to do is, you hope that when you get to that moment, your mind is working in the correct way so that you call the moment clearly and concisely, okay? Because then it's, after you call it, it's about the crowd cheering, okay? And it was the Mark Smith home run.
Oh,
because what happened was, as you know, Cordova, 9 no-hit innings, and Major League Baseball had just changed the rule that if you didn't complete the game, it was not a no-hitter. So when he pitched 9 no-hit innings, it wasn't a no-hitter.
Oh.
And then when Rincon pitched the 10th inning, it still was not a no-hitter. But then when Mark Smith hit the home run, I said, home run, no-hitter, you got it all.
No,
And I think that was my best call.
it was concise, explained it all.
Yeah.
How about your minor leagues? How important was it for you to announce in the minor leagues?
Extremely important.
And how long was it?
I was fortunate. It was only 2 years for me.
Wow.
I mean, there are guys that are there, okay. But when you do 130 games a year, you start feeling what it is about being a baseball announcer and your rhythm and your timing. And that's why I argue that when it comes to replacing Bill Hillgrove, okay, just because somebody's in Pittsburgh, if they've not done a lot of play-by-play football, that's why I was saying Tony Caridi ought to have the job. Okay, Jack Fleming had it, West Virginia announcer. Caridi ought to have the job. And Tony, by the way, has said publicly he doesn't think he can do it with college football being what it is now, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't mean that just because you have done some play-by-play and that you're a good sportscaster means you're automatically going to be good enough to do football play-by-play and be descriptive and call the play and paint the picture and all of that. And you know, it's like believing that a family doctor can now do surgery.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's like the guy that works at Eden Park can now work for an expensive high-class restaurant,
Yeah.
okay? It just doesn't
Yes.
relate
Yeah,
automatically.
How about what you think of? I heard you on a talk show recently about what you think of the Baseball Hall of Fame and the people that vote for the Hall of Fame.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this one.
Oh, well, first of all, when it comes to Rose and Bonds and Sosa and McGuire and Clemens, all those guys, okay, they were never suspended, okay? They were never suspended from
Thank
baseball,
you.
okay?
Thank you.
They, as a matter of fact, baseball promoted their chases for the records, okay? Baseball never said, hey, we think we're going to give you your money back.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to give you your money
Yeah.
back. Okay,
We're gonna pull back all those
So why
ads.
shouldn't they be in the Hall of Fame? They were never suspended. Baseball jumped on the bandwagon for them. I mean, the thing with Rose is absurd. I mean, Pete Rose did nothing gambling related that affected the fact that he collected more hits than anybody else in baseball. Okay? Yeah, ban him from the game. I understand that. Ban him from the game, but not put him in the Hall of Fame. And then here's in the old days, the baseball writers who voted for the Hall of Fame were guys that covered 162 games. Charlie Feeney, okay?
Yes.
They covered 162 games, right? Now, the guys that are voting, if they see 30 games, 20 of them are on television, right?
I would say, I don't know
And
the
plus,
number. Yeah.
Plus, name me a sports writer that has a moral compass in his pocket.
They're determining.
Yeah. They're all
Morality of
of a
who
sudden,
should go
they've
in.
got this
Yeah.
high moral standard, right?
Numbers don't lie. Numbers
It's a
don't lie.
great call. It's
Yeah.
a great point.
You can't. If you're going to do merit,
Right.
you have to go both sides, and they
Well,
don't do
and
both sides.
I understand, you know, the thing with Bonds was great to me, okay? Matter of fact, I know a story. One day Bonds is in town with the Giants. I went up to Barry and I said, will you do a TV interview with me? He said, yes. Greg went up to him and said, will you do a radio? I mean, Greg didn't know we didn't tell each other.
Yeah.
Greg went up and asked him, and he said no to Greg, okay? So if the tables had been reversed, I'd probably be annoyed that he said no to me. Okay, and Greg would be happy that he said yes to me.
Of
Okay?
course.
So I understand that.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that, you know, there were players that you knew just want to be left alone. Okay?
Yeah.
George Hendrick, right?
Oh,
One of my, you know, top 5 worst Pirates, George Hendricks.
he's on mine. He's on mine.
You know,
Who else? Let's get at it.
I mean, John
Let's
Milner.
go. Do a
See,
top
you weren't here in
5.
'79, but John Milner wanted to be left alone. Okay, he'd sit in the corner of the clubhouse with a robe on. He just didn't want to be bothered. Leave him alone. Okay,
Yeah, which is okay, is your point.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
He's probably an introvert, right? Like a lot of these guys, I don't think people can understand, you know, and being around Andrew a lot, especially during his MVP seasons. I mean, we would have to run back from dinner in Cincinnati because there'd be 25 people out there waiting outside the restaurant. We'd have to sneak into places just so this guy gets a break. I mean, people don't understand the whole picture sometimes.
Well, but Michael, I got to tell you, I don't think pro athletes do enough for fans. I don't think they do enough for fans.
You're speaking to the choir, and Andrew does a great job.
And the ironic thing is that a lot of players, after they're done with the game, you know, they're looking for announcing jobs, and they're, you know, all of a sudden now they're willing to be good guys. But
listen, I completely agree. I'm just saying there is a reality that everybody has, whether they're a player or not a player. We don't know what they've gone through. We don't know where they're at that day. You may meet them on their very, very worst day, and that's your opinion of them because of that day. And I always say, like, they have a collective group of stats that tells you they played really well for a long time. Don't judge them on a day or 3 years of their career based on something you don't know, but you know this much, like you just said. 20 games means nothing watching on TV, but that's what they say, or it's the opinions of everybody else.
But Michael, like I'll give it. I mean, I was not a big Andy Vance like fan, okay? And of the 3 of them, Bonds, Bonilla, Vance like, Bobby was my favorite. Okay, I like Bobby, and Bobby, okay. But I mean, Andy used to talk about his Christianity and all that stuff. I watched him walk out of Three River Stadium one day and blow by 4 or 5 kids and just ran by them, okay? And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, if you're a Christian, you know, come on now, is it that tough for you to?
Well,
and when I hear players say,
I
hear players say, well, they're selling my autographs. Well, so what? Okay, you're making millions of dollars.
Correct.
What's the big deal?
Correct.
Okay, and especially I maintain, and you know this happened. I mean, maybe it's changed. I don't know. But guys would sit in the clubhouse and play cards, and they'd run out for infield practice, and then they'd run back in. And I mean, what does it take to come out of the locker room, out of the clubhouse, and sign autographs along the fence once in a while?
I don't understand it. And I'll tell you why, Lanny. And I say this because one of our great friends was at the top of the baseball world, an all-star cover of Sports Illustrated, World Series hero. And then he was at the bottom. He never changed, Steve Blass. He always had time, to this day, for everyone. So if he could do what he did, to me, there's no excuse for why you can't do. I don't want to hear about bad days and you're in a hurry and all that stuff. You can be polite. You can sign some autographs. I just don't. I'll never understand.
You know, and let me tell you this.
Hey, I need to tell you guys. I agree with that. I'm saying for the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame's a different story.
Well, that's where it's two different stories.
So if you're going to go on merit, you got to go on merit on both sides. But yeah, I completely agree. We have a pedestal. We've been lifted up. We're on a platform. I don't care who you are. You have time. Period. Period.
Well, and if you're having a bad day,
you still do it.
Then just avoid. Okay. Then avoid the situation.
But even so,
okay?
like, you can have a bad day and still do it.
You know, I used to be the first guy on the team bus when we were going out to the airport. Okay. And I would watch guys come out of the locker room and come out of that little tunnelway by PNC Park, right? And what they would do is they were coming out of the tunnelway, they would do this.
Yeah.
They weren't on the phone, and the fans would yell for autographs, and they'd go, I'm on the phone, They weren't on the phone.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? And so you're going to go on the bus and sit there and wait for 15 minutes. Why couldn't you? Okay, so, by the way, back to Blass. A couple years ago.
I love this guy.
A number of years ago, Dodger fans announced that the most valuable person in the history of the Los Angeles Dodgers, the most valuable person in the history of Los Angeles Dodgers was Vin Scully. Okay? And I maintain the most dominant, most important person in the history of the Pittsburgh Pirates is Steve Blass.
I agree with you.
Steve Blass.
I agree with you.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Okay? On the field, World Series hero. Okay? Winner. Good guy. Left baseball and started selling rings, going to high schools, okay? He's a Major League World Series hero, and he's not, and it's not beneath him to go to
Dead of
high
winter,
schools and sell
driving
rings. Okay,
hours, yep.
And then all he's done for the Pirates, nobody's done more for the Pirates.
Greatest
than Steve Black.
ambassador ever, and that's why
Yeah,
I think his
without
number
question.
should be retired, frankly.
Without question.
Yep.
I think his
look-
number should be retired.
I
do.
would agree with that.
Yeah.
I
Number
completely
28,
agree.
I think, should be retired.
I completely agree.
Yep.
I mean, you can't find
But
another
not
human like
McCutcheon.
him.
I don't know about that.
No,
when
not
his
McCutcheon.
career's over, you don't think so?
No,
you
I
know
don't-
he's in the top 5 in just about every offensive category in the team's history.
No, I don't think so.
Really?
I think that is an honor that
Well, maybe. I mean,
he's far away from. I mean, Dave Parker's going to, I mean, if I had a choice between Dave Parker and Andrew McCutcheon, I'm taking Dave Parker.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know how close I am to him. That's a tough fight.
that's our next episode.
That's a tough fight.
Now, because on our final moments, I want to ask you, how quickly can you name every president? Have you timed it?
Ooh.
Oh, I haven't timed it, no, but,
I mean, can you do
How
it like
boring is that?
in a minute? How?
oh, I don't know. I'm 76. Sometimes I get,
There's no way. That brain is sharper
Well-
than anything.
yeah, right. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, John Quincy Adams, Jackson, Van Buren, Harrison, Tyler, Polk, Taylor, Fillmore, Millard Fillmore, Franklin Pierce, James Buchanan, Abraham Lincoln, Johnson, Grant. Okay, all right.
Well, let's go. Okay, keep going. As we serenade us.
By the way, they consider. See if I get this right. They consider Joe Biden number 46, but he's only the 45th president of the United States.
Yeah, right.
Because we count Grover Cleveland twice.
What do you think of that? Do you agree with that? Officially?
Sometimes
debate?
you just go. I mean, there are great men and women who are great historians. They should make that decision. Not some 76-year-old over-the-hill baseball announcer on a podcast.
What an
That's
absolute
for them.
treat.
But that's
What
what
an
we do
absolute
here,
treat.
right?
That is for them. Okay, I can give you a lot of opinions now, but that's not one of them that I think I should take away from.
Now, if you don't think this man belongs in the Ford Frick wing of the Hall of Fame,
Oh,
you're
don't get me
crazy.
started
No.
about that.
He absolutely.
Here's the thing about the Ford Frick Award, okay? First of all, most recipients of the Ford Frick Award are guys that have the team PR organization trumpeting them,
True.
okay? And that's not going to happen for me. The Pirate PR department's not going to, okay? The other thing is that the Ford Frick Award's been there for 40 years, okay? And there's only been one Pirate broadcaster, Bob Prince, okay? So in the next 40 years, there's only going to be one more. So it's either going to be you or me, or Blass. Okay, it's not going to be both of us. It's going to be one. And
Well,
Why
then-
not?
because I mean, but first of all, there are 30 teams, all politicking for their guy. Then you got the national guys. I mean, Al Michaels is a Ford Frick recipient. Okay, did national baseball, was the Giants for a while, the Reds for a while. Okay, all these other guys that are national guys, that they're gonna, because they're in this national spotlight. They're gonna every several years there's going to be one non-team announcer that's now going to push that 30 back to 35 or so. I mean, would I?
Would you accept?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I mean, and have I at times said I'm deserving of it? Yes, but unfortunately, that when I have stopped to think about that, I start getting a little upset and start getting depressed, because here's the reality. Greg, if I had stayed 40 years with the Pirates, I'd be in Cooperstown.
Do you think just because of 40 is the magic number?
Well, and not only that, but some people in baseball are forgotten about once they're out of the game. And so I'm not there to
You're not the flavor of
rub
the month.
elbows with.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys that vote are the guys that are in. Okay.
Yeah.
Brenneman and Dave Van Horn and the guys that are in that are still alive, and it's not surprising that some announcers would be forgotten about, because and then again there is the politicking. There are people that are, as I say, team PR directors that are either told to or encouraged to send out bios and encourage those people to vote for their announcers.
Well, we need to do a better job ourselves than doing that.
Well said.
How about your?
But I'm not going to go back to drinking just because of that.
Oh, then
Okay,
forget
no,
it. How about your first foray into Hold My Cutter? How was it?
I'm worried now about will I get invited back or not?
Are
Would you
kidding
like
me?
to be invited back?
Oh, I would certainly.
You have a standing invitation,
Matter
sir.
of fact, I will not schedule any more Pirate Day games at home, hoping that you'll call me.
Done.
Hold My Cutter.
I will tell my secretary. I don't have a secretary. I will say, don't schedule any games when the Pirates are home, and not traveling that day in case Brownie and Michael call me to.
Well, I can guarantee you we're going to invite Lanny Frattare back, and so will Eric Katz from Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Finding a home is much like selecting the perfect cigar. It takes time, expertise, and a discerning eye to ensure it suits your taste and budget. So before you think of anyone else, remember to check out Ask Era Katz. That's Ask Era. Era ends with an H, KATZ.com. And Ask Era because she knows. Era Katz with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services is your real estate aficionado. Call her for unparalleled guidance and expertise, whether you're buying or selling. Era. You know, the only era that we could remember in sports was, of course, Era Parsegian, the old Notre Dame head coach. And just like Era, our Era is a winner too. Remember to ask Era because she knows. Ask for Era Katz with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services for all your real estate needs. AskEraKatz.com and tell her the Fort and Greg and Lanny sent you. Curious what your home is worth? If you don't ask, at least ask Era Katz. You'll regret it. And you'll regret not tuning into the next or listening to the next Hold My Cutter. Thanks to Burn by Rocky Patel.